This focus on the new and the next, or what I would call enterprise journalism, which I'm very passionate about. I mean, I love it, I believe in it. But increasingly, our business seems to believe that you have to kind of follow the herd and weigh in on those high traffic stories that everyone's talking about. That's the only way to get big and get scale and to win. So do you think that you don't need that scale to win, or do you think that with this kind of product, you will eventually get that scale?
Well, I think the answer was in your earlier segment. Facebook's $7 billion quarter.
Right.
They're happy to have Buzzfeed and Mike and Bustle and Skim and all the other Me Too's just repeat the same stories over and over again, because they end up with $7 billion in profit in their coffers and they say it was a really good quarter. I think that people are more selective in that. I think that people have known that there's an opportunity to get an Apple, an HBO, a Tesla. Back in the day, I would call a Starbucks was in this category, meaning a really premium offering at a reasonable price, right? And so when people knew they could get that, they went out of their way for that Starbucks cup of coffee, or once upon a time for those Nike shoes, or for that wonderful Sex and the City show, or The Wire. And so I think that people will deal with less as long as it's super high quality. You call it enterprise journalism. I call it cutting edge, profiling the new and the next. And so far, we're seeing really good results, not only in terms of our traffic and our audience, but in terms of how we, I hate to use this word because I know it sounds jargony, but how we monetize it.
So, but like it or not, I mean, people are going to lump you into this sector with these big behemoths, Buzzfeed, as you mentioned. They are incredibly enormous, and Vice. And so how do you compete with them? I mean,
I think a little bit the way some of the insurgents along the way have, whether those insurgents have been called HBO or Tesla or others. And so we've thought about it in at least two ways. One, again, I think our ambition has to be different. If all we're going to do is just repeat the same Kardashian or cat story, that's for BuzzFeed, that's for Mike, that's for Bustle, that's for those guys. But if we really think that we can introduce you to rising trends and interesting stars, and we think that you've got a curiosity gap that we can fill there, then I think we can do that. The other piece is how we end up making money. I mean, to give Shane and the guys at Vice a ton of credit, I think they were pioneers in saying, if we just rely upon advertising, we'll do well, right? In the way that HuffPo and others have. But if we think about a more diversified revenue stream that in their case included, creating ads, essentially becoming a creative agency and television, that's something that's much sturdier. Now, they're the only ones really in our space who've done it until Ozzy. And so we think similarly, there's an opportunity not only around ads and television, but also we think a big opportunity is live events. I mean,
so do we at Fortune.
Oh, yeah. And to your guys' credit, you guys really, you and The Atlantic, I would say, have been two of the really pioneers there. And I think what you guys, Fortune Women's Conference, I think has been one of the few new conferences, I would say, in the last decade that really has mattered, right? I mean, South by Southwest has been there for a number of years. Davos has been there for a number of years. Coachella and others.
There's a value of bringing these people together in an environment that people really want to connect. But let me ask you one other thing. Your site is aimed at millennials. It's a young person site.
Or we like to say it's aimed at the curious, many of whom are millennials.
That's true.
We've been lucky enough to have Bill Gates call us one of his favorite and regular places to go, and he's not quite a millennial. And but yes, we are 75% millennial and Gen X.
So my question is, so do you think they actually have a longer attention span than others would have us believe, with stories like 10 things that go better with ketchup, which is one of my all-time favorites of that ilk? do they really want more depth?
I think they do. I mean, look, there will always be people who have an appetite for BuzzFeed and Mike and the like, right? And they're always going to look at cat videos and simple stuff, and all power to those guys. They're going to do really well, and I think that's great. But I do think that people want stuff that's both clever and flavorful, and I don't think they should have to choose, right? And I think part of the reason why HBO had so much success, not just with millennials, but a whole generation of people, and part of the reason why Netflix is having a bit of a moment here, is that they have figured out that you can create shows that don't have to be either smart or sexy, but you actually, smart is sexy, right? And that you can do both. And so that's what we're trying to do as well.